The young woman's hand shot up like lightning as Rosalía began singing in Spanish. But instead of joy, her face showed pure panic. Ellen had been enjoying a beautiful acoustic performance when she noticed the 20-something Latina in the third row desperately trying to hide tears, while everyone around her smiled and swayed to the music. What happened next proved that sometimes the most painful prison is the one we build around our own heritage. The Ellen DeGeneres show studio pulsed with vibrant energy this Thursday afternoon in Burbank. 410 audience members filled every available seat, their anticipation electric as they prepared to witness one of the world's most innovative artists perform live. Rosalía Vila Tobela sat poised in the guest chair, an ethereal vision in a flowing emerald dress with intricate gold embroidery that seemed to capture light with every subtle movement. Ellen, stunning in a tailored ivory blazer with rose gold accents that complemented the singer's aesthetic perfectly, was absolutely captivated as they discussed Rosalía's groundbreaking fusion of traditional flamenco with contemporary sounds. "Rosalía, your music is this incredible bridge between generations," Ellen said, her voice carrying the genuine enthusiasm that had made her beloved by artists worldwide. "You take these ancient flamenco traditions and make them speak to young people today. How do you balance honoring the past while creating something completely new?" Rosalía's eyes sparkled with passionate intensity as she leaned forward, her hands gracefully illustrating her words. "Ellen, for me, tradition is not museum piece. Tradition is living thing that must grow and change or it dies. Flamenco was always music of resistance, of survival, of people who had no voice finding way to sing anyway." Her accent was musical, her English confident but beautifully flavored with her Spanish roots, and Ellen could see audience members leaning forward, drawn into this artist's unique perspective on cultural authenticity. "You know what I love about that?" Ellen said. "You're not trying to choose between being Spanish or being global. You're showing that you can be both, that your heritage makes your art stronger, not more limited." Rosalía nodded emphatically. "Exactly. When I sing in Spanish, when I use flamenco palmas, when I bring my grandmother's Andalusian spirit into modern studio, I am not being backward. I am being myself completely, and that completeness is what makes music powerful." But even as the conversation flowed beautifully, Ellen's trained eye caught something troubling in the third row. A young woman, probably in her mid-20s, was visibly distressed. While everyone around her smiled and nodded appreciatively at Rosalía's words, this woman looked like she was fighting an internal battle that was becoming harder to hide. "Would you mind performing something for us?" Ellen asked, sensing that music might be the perfect bridge to whatever was happening in the audience. "I know our audience would love to hear you sing." Rosalía's face lit up with delight. "Of course, I would love to sing Malamente acoustic, just voice and palmas. This song is about breaking free from things that hold us back." As Rosalía began to sing, her voice soaring through the studio in rich, complex Spanish lyrics, something extraordinary happened. The young woman in the third row, who had been struggling to contain her emotions, suddenly looked up with an expression of such raw pain and recognition that Ellen felt her heart skip a beat. "Como si fuera normal, que ya no duerma por na," Rosalía sang, her voice carrying centuries of emotion through modern melody. The young woman's hand shot up involuntarily, as if the music was pulling something out of her against her will. But instead of the joy that typically accompanied raised hands during performances, her gesture seemed desperate, almost like a drowning person reaching for rescue. Ellen watched as tears began streaming down the woman's face, her mouth moving silently as if she was singing along, but couldn't allow herself to make sound. There was something about her reaction that went beyond simple appreciation for beautiful music. This was personal. This was painful. Rosalía continued singing, but Ellen could see that the artist had also noticed the distressed audience member. Without missing a note, Rosalía's eyes found the young woman's, and some kind of silent communication passed between them. When the song ended to thunderous applause, Ellen made a decision that felt more important than maintaining show flow. "That was absolutely beautiful," Ellen said, standing up from her chair with her arms spread wide in genuine amazement. "Rosalía, your voice it transforms the entire space. But I have to ask." Ellen turned toward the third row. "I noticed someone in our audience who seemed very moved by that performance. Would you mind sharing what that song meant to you?" The young woman looked mortified to be called out, her face flushing deep red as she realized that hundreds of people were now looking at her. 24-year-old Sofia Ramirez from Los Angeles clutched the arms of her seat, torn between the desire to disappear and what felt like a desperate need to finally speak her truth. I'm sorry," Sofia said, her voice barely audible and heavily accented despite her clear attempt to minimize it. "I didn't mean to make scene." Ellen's expression softened completely as she heard the shame in Sofia's voice, the way she was clearly working to hide her accent and cultural markers. "Sweetheart, you didn't make a scene. You had a genuine reaction to beautiful music, and that's exactly what music is supposed to do." Rosalía had quietly stood up and was now walking down from the stage towards Sofia, her emerald dress flowing like water as she moved with the fluid grace of a natural performer. But there was nothing performative about her expression. This was pure compassion in action. "¿Cómo te llamas, preciosa?" Rosalía asked gently, switching to Spanish as she approached Sofia's row. Sofia's face crumpled at hearing her native language spoken with such warmth and respect. "Sofia," she whispered, then immediately switched to English. "I'm sorry, my name is Sofia." Ellen felt her heart break a little as she watched this young woman apologize for speaking her own language, as if her natural response was somehow wrong or inappropriate. "Sofia es un nombre hermoso," Rosalía said, settling into the empty seat beside her without invitation, treating this stranger like family. "Why you cry when I sing? The music, it touched something inside. Yes?" Sofia looked between Rosalía and Ellen, clearly overwhelmed by finding herself at the center of attention for reasons she hadn't intended. "It's just, I haven't heard someone sing in Spanish like that, with such pride, in so long, and it reminded me of my abuela, and how I used to sing with her before I—" Her voice trailed off, but Ellen could see there was more to this story, something that was causing Sofia real pain. "Before you what, sweetheart?" Ellen asked gently, moving closer to the audience seating area. Sofia took a shaky breath, looking directly at Rosalía as if drawing strength from seeing someone who embraced her heritage so fearlessly. "Before I decided that being Latina was holding me back, before I started hiding my accent, lying about my last name, pretending I didn't understand Spanish when people spoke to me at work." The admission hung in the air like a confession, raw and honest and heartbreaking in its simplicity. Rosalía's expression transformed with recognition and deep sadness. "Ay, mi amor," she said softly, reaching out to take Sofia's hand. "You have been hiding from yourself." "I work in corporate finance," Sofia continued, her words coming out in a rush now that the dam had broken. "And every day, I watch how differently people treat me when they think I'm just American, versus when they hear my real voice, my real name, see my real self. So I learned to speak like them, dress like them, laugh like them. I became so good at being what they wanted that I forgot how to be who I am." Ellen felt tears springing to her own eyes as she recognized the profound cost of assimilation, the way systemic prejudice could force people to choose between success and authenticity. But when you were singing, Sofia said, looking at Rosalía through her tears, I remembered my grandmother teaching me flamenco clapping, teaching me that our music was something beautiful, something to be proud of. And I realized I haven't spoken Spanish, really spoken it, not just ordered food or talked to my mother, in almost 2 years. Rosalía stood up abruptly, her emerald dress creating a striking silhouette as she faced Sofia with fierce determination. Stand up, she said, extending both hands. Stand up and let me hear your real voice. Sofia hesitated, clearly terrified, but also desperate for the kind of acceptance Rosalía was offering. Come on, Ellen encouraged, understanding instinctively that this moment was about more than just one woman's story. Let's hear who you really are. Sofia stood slowly, taking Rosalía's offered hands. And when she spoke again, her voice was completely different, richer, more musical, filled with the warmth and rhythm that she had been suppressing. Mi nombre es Sofia Elena Ramírez, she said, her natural accent flowing like water after years of drought. Soy de una familia de inmigrantes de Guadalajara, y he estado viviendo como si tuviera vergüenza de eso. The Spanish rolled off her tongue, like something that had been locked away and was finally free, and Ellen could see the visible relief in Sofia's posture as she reclaimed her linguistic heritage. Rosalía beamed with pride and joy, squeezing Sofia's hands tighter. Ahí está, there she is. This is your power, Sofia. This is your music, your rhythm, your truth. Why you would hide this beautiful thing? Because, Sofia said, switching back to English but maintaining her natural accent, I thought I had to choose between being successful and being myself. I thought being Latina meant being less than, being unprofessional, being not enough. Ellen stepped closer, her ivory blazer and rose gold accents creating a warm frame as she addressed not just Sofia, but the millions of viewers who might be struggling with similar choices. Sofia, what you just described is something that so many people face. The pressure to hide parts of themselves to fit into spaces that weren't designed for them. But look at Rosalía. She didn't become less successful by embracing her heritage. She became more powerful. Rosalía nodded emphatically, her hands still holding Sofia's as if anchoring her to this moment of truth. Success that requires you to disappear is not real success. Real power comes from showing the world something they have never seen before, something only you can bring. Sofia looked around the studio, taking in the faces of audience members who were clearly moved by her story, many nodding with recognition and understanding. I haven't called my grandmother in 3 months, Sofia admitted quietly, because every time we talk, I have to choose between disappointing her by speaking English or disappointing my co-workers by maintaining my accent. I've been living like I'm split in half. Rosalía's eyes flashed with something that looked like righteous anger on Sofia's behalf. No, mi amor, you are not split. You are complete. You are bilingual, bicultural, beautiful woman who contains multitudes. The people who cannot see that beauty, they are the ones with problem, not you. Ellen felt the power of this moment, understanding that they were witnessing something that could change not just Sofia's life, but the lives of countless viewers struggling with similar identity conflicts. Sofia, Ellen said, I want to ask you something. What would it look like if you stopped hiding? What would happen if you brought your whole self to work, to your relationships, to your life? Sofia considered this, her expression shifting from fear to something that looked like possibility. I think I might remember how to sing again. I think I might call my abuela and tell her I miss her. I think I might stop being so tired all the time from pretending to be someone I'm not. Rosalía released Sofia's hands and stepped back, her emerald dress catching the studio lights as she began clapping a complex flamenco rhythm. Then let's practice, she said with a grin. Let me hear you sing something in Spanish. Anything. a lullaby your grandmother taught you, a song from church, anything that feels like home. Sofia's eyes widened with a mixture of terror and excitement. Here? Now? In front of everyone? Especially here, especially now, especially in front of everyone, Ellen said with conviction, because this is exactly where you need to practice being yourself completely. Sofia closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began singing softly in Spanish. It was a simple folk song her grandmother had taught her, about a little bird who forgot how to fly until she remembered the sky was her home. Her voice was untrained but pure, filled with emotion and cultural memory that had been suppressed for too long. As Sofia sang, something magical happened in the studio. Other Latina audience members began humming along, recognizing the melody from their own childhoods. Some began clapping softly with Rosalia's rhythm. The studio transformed into a celebration of cultural pride and authentic self-expression. When Sofia finished, the applause was thunderous and sustained. But more importantly, Sofia looked transformed. The shame had left her face, replaced by something that looked like homecoming. Ellen walked over and embraced Sofia warmly. "That was beautiful. That was you. And anyone who can't see the value in that doesn't deserve to be part of your life." Rosalía nodded, her hands pressed to her heart. "Sofia, you just gave us all a gift. You reminded us that our heritage is not costume we put on sometimes. It is the music in our bones, the rhythm in our hearts, the poetry in our blood." 6 months later, Sofia had founded a support group for Latina professionals struggling with code switching and cultural identity in corporate environments. The group met monthly and had grown to over 60 members across Los Angeles, creating a space where women could practice being their authentic selves while strategizing about how to succeed professionally without sacrificing their cultural identities. Rosalía partnered with the group to create a scholarship fund for young Latinas pursuing careers in traditionally white-dominated fields, emphasizing the importance of bringing cultural perspectives into spaces that needed diversification. Ellen created a recurring segment on her show called Authentic Voices, where people from different backgrounds shared stories about the pressure to assimilate and the power of embracing their full identities. Sofia had called her grandmother that same evening after the taping, speaking Spanish for an hour, while tears of joy streamed down both their faces. She had started taking flamenco classes, not to become a performer, but to reconnect with the parts of herself she had abandoned in pursuit of acceptance. Because sometimes the most important performance is the one where you stop performing and start being exactly who you were born to be, cultural heritage and all, in a world that needs your authentic voice more than it needs another version of what already exists.